Hello, I'm Becky Saif. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to take a look at parallel compression. The timestamps to this video are below in the description, so you can skip back and forth to your favorite section. And before we get into it, I just want to let you know that I have just released my new free ebook, 10 steps that professional music producers use to make music faster. So if you're struggling to finish your tracks and get them out to your following, then check out my free ebook. The link to the download is in the description, as well as all of the other links to all of the other stuff, including the Twitch channel, the Discord, and everything else you might want to know about to help you on your music making journey. So let's start with what actually is parallel compression. If you're new to the term, it's also known as New York compression, and it basically does what it says. It is compression running in parallel alongside your original sound. So instead of putting a compressor on your group or on your track, you would send that group or track to another channel or copy it down, and you would compress another channel in parallel. It is a form of dynamic range compression whereby you're not compressing the highest peaks, you're actually bringing up the softer sounds, and so you're reducing the dynamic range but maintaining those upper peaks. And it generally results in a much more punchier, thicker, fuller, grittier, sparklier sound than if you just compressed your original track, because then what you're doing is you're pulling down those upper peaks, and you're also potentially destroying the crucial transients, which is especially important on a drum bus. So in order to preserve those transients and get that thicker, fuller, fatter sound, we would use parallel compression. And most commonly it's used on drums, but you could use it on anything if you want to get a thicker, fuller sound. Things like vocals, bass, guitars, whatever you want to use it on, experiment and see what works for you. So we're going to jump into Ableton. I'm going to show you from start to finish using sends and returns how to do parallel compression, and then I'm also going to show you the other two ways that you can do parallel processing in Ableton. All right, so here I have a track that I'm currently working on. There are no sends and returns. We're in the arrangement view, and you can see here if I click the R, there are no return channels. So what I want to do is I want to set up parallel compression on a return channel. So I'm just going to play you what I've got on the track so you can hear what we're working with. We're going to do it on the drum group, so I'm just going to solo that. And instead of compressing this drum group and potentially losing that dynamic range from the higher peaks and also destroying the transients, which are so important on drums, what we're going to do is set up a send and return. So you're going to right click down here and insert a return track. And now we have our return. We're going to rename it Control or Command R. And we're going to do comp. And then if you come over to your audio effects and you look for dynamics and then glue compressor, instead of dragging the glue compressor directly onto the return channel, you're going to go onto the downward triangle, and you'll see now that we have all of these presets that are made for a particular compression purpose. And you'll see that we have drum full parallel. This is what we're going to use, so we're going to drag it onto our return channel, and now you'll see that we have specific settings that are set. The threshold is pulled up really high, we have makeup gain, we have an attack of 3 and a release of 1 and a ratio of 2. Now these settings, you can adjust them to your taste. What I like to do with parallel compression is just really hardcore compress the sound. So I'm going to pull the ratio up to 10. I'm going to bring the attack down, so we're cutting off those transients. We don't need the transients to run in parallel because we already have them in our original track. And the release, I'm going to bring it up to 2 so that we have that really tight, crushed sound. I'm going to also bring the range down, so let's bring it down to around 20, and I'm also going to bring the dry wet up to 100% because we're using this in parallel on a return channel. So we don't want this dry wet because it's not actually on the drum group, it is running alongside the drum group, and we want it to be crushed and just screwed up so that we can blend it in with our original track. Okay, so now we're ready. We're going to send the drum group to our return channel, and we're going to see what this sounds like. I'm going to solo the return channel so you can hear the sound. Bring the threshold down. Unsolo. I'm going to A-B so you can hear with and without the compression. So you can hear that we've added more fullness, more brightness, more grit, tone, and character to our drum group. Now, the one thing to note is that as we've sent this to a return channel, we've actually increased the amount of volume or decibel content of sound. So just bear that in mind, because if you're blending in a return channel of a drum group, you're actually increasing the overall volume. So what you need to do is just bring down the volume of your original drum group. So I'm sure you can hear that the tops are getting a lot brighter. You can really hear them now in the mix. And you may want to go back into the drum group and just attenuate them a little bit with some EQ, just so you have a little bit more control whilst retaining that parallel fullness and brightness. Now, one more thing that I like to do with my parallel drum group is just to tidy it up a little bit. At the moment, we have a drum full parallel compressor on there, but I would personally add a high pass filter and also a utility plugin to mono the bass frequencies. So I'm going to come into the audio effects and I'm going to get an EQ8, drag that onto the track before the compressor, and then high pass filter. So basically, I'm not including any of the kick drum low frequencies because I don't want any muddiness or congestion in the low end by adding more and more tracks into my bass frequencies. I want to really have that control over the low frequencies of the kick drum, but the rest of the kick drum will be there in that upper frequency range. The next thing I want to do is just mono the low frequencies. So I'm going to come onto the utility and I'm going to drag a utility down, and then we're going to do bass mono and bring it right up to 500 Hertz. This just further controls those mid-range down to the low-end frequencies, and it's just a lot more control on this return channel, which isn't the main track in the project. It's just more of a mixing tool. So let's play the track. You can really hear how it's crushing up the sound. Let's A-B with and without. You can hear how it really brings the drums to life and pulls them further forward in the mix, which is what you want in electronic dance music because you want people to hear the rhythm on the dance floor. That's my preferred way of processing in parallel, but now I'm going to show you two of the ways that you can do it inside Ableton. And the first one is probably the most obvious way of doing it, but it's the longest because it starts to congest all of the tracks in your arrangement. And that would be to press Control or Command and D and copy your group. And then you would go about doing the processing in exactly the same way. So now we have a second track here. Technically, it's running in parallel. It's just in the arrangement view. And you would grab your compressor and any other processing that you would like to do on the track. And then you would use the decibel slider here. And this is how you would blend in parallel with your other track. So in a sense, you have the two tracks running alongside each other in parallel. And finally, the other way that you can do it is using an audio effect rack. So if you drag the audio effect rack onto your drum group and you open it up, you create a chain by right-clicking and right-clicking. You're going to have one chain as your dry drum group, and then you're going to have another chain as your compressed drum group. And then you drag your parallel glue compression onto the second chain. You leave the first one as it is, and then you can start to add your other things like your EQ8, doing your high pass if you want to, and attenuating on the glue compression. And then you would blend in these chains with each other. So you have your main group and then you have your compressed chain. And you can see there how they're both running in parallel. So that's parallel compression. It's just not using the sends and the return channels. And that, my friends, is parallel compression in Ableton. I hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it. And if you did, please give me a like and a comment and a subscription. Yes, it takes 2 seconds. You could do it. It would really mean a lot. It helps the channel grow and it gets this content out to more people like you and helps to build the community so that we can inspire and motivate and make successful producers in the world. That's a pretty big it's a pretty big speech that for please just subscribe. But if you would love to subscribe, I would really like it. So thank you. If you do subscribe, obviously. If you don't, then see you later. Also, don't forget to grab your copy of my free ebook, which is 10 steps that professional music producers use to make music faster. The link to that is in the description below, as well as all of the other links that I've already mentioned. And I would love to see you in the Twitch streams if you do have Twitch, and if you don't, download it. You will rapidly learn production a lot more by watching other producers stream on Twitch. I highly recommend it. All right, that is it. That is all we've got time for. I'm Becky Saif. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you for another one. Bye.